Whether you're planning a trip to Ghana soon or just curious about tourism and the Ghanaian culture, you're going to want to stick around and watch this video. I'm giving you 10 important tips and everything you need to know before planning your trip to Ghana.
And your captain has turned off the fasten seatbelt sign. Feel free to move around the cabin.
Akwaba, I'm Sparkle, your single solo traveling sister, here sharing my tips and adventures to help inspire your next trip. Since the year of the return in 2019, tourism in Ghana has soared. Many go every year for Afrochella, now known as Afrofuture, which is a music festival that celebrates the variety and sounds of the African diaspora. We've also seen an influx in celebrity presence in Ghana recently as well. However, a lot of essential information for travel to Ghana is not widely known. So after my recent trip, I decided to compile a list of 10 important things to help you prepare or decide if you want to travel to Ghana. It is important to note, as a U.S. citizen, you will need a visa to travel to Ghana. These visas are very easy to acquire. You need to look for the Ghana embassy in your city or state. However, there are 3 major consulates in the United States. One is in New York City, one is in Washington, D.C., and one in Arkansas. I will link the one I used in Arkansas down below. The process is very simple and self-explanatory. The steps are all laid out on the website. You do need to be aware that if your specific embassy does not have walk-in appointments, you will need to mail in your personal documents, and it does take about 6 weeks for the entire process. As we all know, processing travel documents has slowed down tremendously in recent years, so I would give yourself a full 2 months to get the visa processed and have all of your documents in hand before it is time for your flight. I mailed in my passport and it actually got lost in the mail coming back. So having that buffer time was very helpful under my circumstances. There is a fee for processing the visa. It can range from $60 to $100 depending on how quickly you need your documents. But just be mindful that you do need a visa to travel to Ghana. Next, as we discuss travel, let's talk about your flight. Flights to Ghana can be quite tricky. They usually range between $1,500 on the low end up to $2,500, and this is for economy class. If you see anything under $1,500, you need to go ahead and snatch it up. It's also important to note that your travel time is going to be anywhere from 12 to 20 plus hours to get to Ghana from the United States. You will likely have multiple connecting flights or multiple layovers. So you want to be mindful of your packing and your timing on your connection so that you don't miss your connecting flight. I do believe United Airlines has recently added some nonstop flights from Washington, D.C. to Ghana, but those tend to be a little bit more pricey, and I think they only offer them at certain times of the year. If you're flying into Ghana from the United States or from anywhere, you'll be flying in the Kotoka International Airport. The airport code is ACC. It's a fairly small but clean airport. When I arrived, I didn't have any issues. Getting through customs was a breeze. However, as I did my research, I learned that they do tend to get back up at certain times of the year, and the processing of getting through customs can take a couple of hours. So you want to be mindful of that depending on the time of year you are traveling. Next, let's talk about the ever so important aspect: budget, currency, and money. Everything in Ghana is relatively affordable compared to standard U.S. prices: food, lodging, traveling around in the city of Accra, but the flight is quite expensive. However, once you've gotten your flight, you can budget. I would say $50 a day is quite generous for your entire trip. I was there for a week, and I think my tally came to about $130 for the entire week. That included food, shopping, knickknacks, and getting my hair done. I did travel as a group, so there were some things that we paid for ahead of time. We paid for a private driver and a few special occasion dinners that we paid for as a group. So if you add in all of that, I would say $300 was the most I spent for the entire week. However, that didn't include the Airbnb rental. Now, while things in Accra are very affordable, keep in mind that if you are traveling in December during Afrochella or Afrofuture, as it's now called, prices tend to triple. So if you're pricing for hotels, Airbnb, transportation, that will triple in the month of December. In Ghana, their currency is called CD, CEDIS, pronounced CD. Now, I would normally recommend that you get your currency from your local bank. The conversion rates are usually cheaper, and that's the best way to avoid unnecessary fees. However, I bank with a very popular bank branch, and they did not offer Ghana CDs as a conversion. So under these circumstances, it's best to just convert at one of the stands at the airport. I would check with your bank just in case, but it's a good chance that they may not be able to convert it either. $1 equals about Ghana CDs. Now keep in mind that the conversion rate does fluctuate. Not only are all international currencies fluctuating right now, the US dollar is just all over the place in conversion to other currencies, but I have seen conversion rates for the Ghana CD anywhere from $6 to $18 per US dollar just in the past couple of years. So definitely double check before you go. But right now it's $1 to about 11 and some change CDs. It's also important to note that Ghana is pretty cash heavy. The tourism culture is something that has been picking up, like I said, in the past 4 or 5 years. So accepting a variety of currencies and credit cards at a lot of different shopping places is not something that is a guarantee. In most restaurants, you will be able to pay with a credit card, but a lot of the shops on the side of the roads and the markets, you may need to pay in cash. So you want to be mindful of that, keeping a hefty sum of cash available, not necessarily on you at all times, but available at all times is recommended. Another question I get a lot when it comes to Ghana is about the food and the water. So I'm going to cover both of those at one time. Let's start with the water. So bottled water is highly recommended for drinking, and you're going to want to stay hydrated because it is a very tropical, warm tropical, somewhat humid climate. However, upon doing my research before traveling, I saw a lot of articles and suggestions saying that you should also brush your teeth and maybe even wash your face with bottled water just to avoid getting faucet water in your mouth. I did not do that. I actually forgot about that tip, and I was brushing my teeth, washing my face, showering, doing all the things with faucet water. I had absolutely no issues whatsoever. I do think if you are staying out in a little bit more of a rural area, an area that's not quite as developed, it may become an issue depending on, the development in that area. But if you're staying in the central part of Accra, you should be able to use the faucet water to brush your teeth and shower and wash your face. However, just for general consumption, if you're making a cup of tea, a pot of coffee, anything like that, boiling some noodles, you want to go ahead and use bottled water. Now, the food in Ghana is absolutely delicious. There is something for everybody. It doesn't matter what your dietary restrictions are, you will find something delicious in Accra. And that I appreciate it because I am not a true foodie. I don't like to be too experimental when it comes to the food that I eat when I travel. And everything I ate was fresh, delicious, and just the best quality. It doesn't matter if you're a pescatarian, vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free, you will be able to find something on most restaurant menus to suit your palate. A few of the popular restaurants that you will see American tourists patronizing are the Buka Azmira, which is a buffet-style restaurant that's great for large families or large group, and Bella Afrique, which is an outdoor dining experience that has a kind of a Ghanaian twist on Italian cuisine. For those days when you are getting a late start or you decide to turn in early and did not eat out, you can always order meals. They have a food delivery service similar to Grubhub or DoorDash. It is called Bolt. The app is very easy to download. Most of the convenient apps that we have here, like Grubhub or DoorDash, they have a variation in Ghana as well. I used Bolt a couple of times while I was there, and it worked fine. The only difference is we usually load our credit card onto the app here in the United States, and they have more options to pay in cash there. So you just accept the cash option and then pay the delivery driver when they arrive. Another tip that is just kind of my personal preference, I would suggest you pack a good amount of snacks. Going out to eat in Ghana is something that you must experience and you will be completely satisfied. However, the timing of when they bring the food out and how quickly you will get served is very unpredictable. There were a lot of times that we had an itinerary and just kind of had our day planned out and thought we were going to grab something to eat, and that would take a couple of hours. What we thought would take 2 hours to sit down and eat turned into 4 hours, and it did completely throw our day off. So you want to be mindful that their timing and the way that they move in terms of the service industry is a little bit slower than what we're used to here in the United States. So you want to have a couple of extra snacks just so you're not starving, one. And two, also, they don't have a lot of junk food available. I'm a snacker. I like to have something to nosh on late at night or, just in the middle of the day. I did not see a lot of snack food in the grocery stores or in the convenience stores and across. Maybe I was shopping in the wrong area, but if you like to have snacks, nuts, protein bars, whatever it is, I would say pack that with you just in case. Next, another important thing to note if you are traveling to Ghana, especially if you are a remote worker or a digital nomad, is the power and Wi-Fi concerns. First and foremost, you want to be aware that you will need a power converter, an international power converter for your plugs if you're coming here from the United States. Those are easy to find and buy on Amazon, Target, wherever you buy your travel essentials. The Wi-Fi, however, is pretty spotty. Most modern restaurants, hotels will have Wi-Fi. Most Airbnbs will have Wi-Fi. Some of the Airbnb listings that I saw did ask that you restrict the Wi-Fi usage to a certain amount of gigs. That can be an issue. So just make sure if you are renting an Airbnb, you are reading thoroughly with what their Wi-Fi allowance is for the guest. And it's also important to be aware that they do have power outages pretty regularly in Accra. There were a couple of times where the power just kind of went out like in the middle of the night. It happened more at night. So you want to be aware of that. If you are working or trying to get work done for a different time zone, that can be an inconvenience because it's nothing you can do. So just be mindful of that. I was going to try to get some work done while I was there, and I ended up not doing much. I was barely able to respond to emails on most days. So I wouldn't go there with the mindset of being able to get a bunch of work done unless it's an emergency, unless it's something that just absolutely cannot wait. But the Wi-Fi is not very stable, and you just never know when there might be a power outage. Next, let's talk about transportation. The city of Accra is so easy to get around. There are lots of modes of transportation. Some of the most popular options you'll have, and the first that I recommend is getting a personal driver. It is so affordable, budget-friendly, and convenient for you. Also, as a tourist, the personal drivers do go that extra step of also kind of offering you some tour guide assistance, some sort of guidance in your tourism experience. So that was very helpful for me. Like I said, I did travel with a large group, but as a single solo traveler, I like to break off and kind of explore by myself. I was able to hire a driver. He was very accommodating and went above and beyond to make sure that I wasn't being led astray or being ripped off or gypped. So I was very happy about that. They do still have Uber. You can use the same Uber app that you currently have or use on your phone here in the United States. You may have to change the setting to cash because if you request an Uber and the setting is on credit card, they end up canceling the ride almost every time. I'm not sure. Somebody explained to me why they did that, but just pay in cash. Again, it's a very cash heavy area. I don't recommend Uber for large group because most of the Ubers that you request are going to be pretty small, compact cars, economy size cars that can fit maybe 3 adults at the most. If you are traveling with a family, a larger group, go ahead and get a personal driver. They'll be able to secure a van. We were actually traveling in a bus that sat, I want to say 17 or 18 people. So that was very helpful. And we had a personal driver for the entire week. And then, like I said, I had my own personal driver when I wanted to kind of break off and do my own thing. If you're in the more hustling, bustling area, you can also use taxis or tuk-tuk. Taxis are a little tricky because they're not as readily available as you may need them to be. Thinking of like just walking out of a restaurant and hailing a taxi, you probably won't be able to do that. They may have some specific apps for taxis. I didn't do any research to see what those apps are because, like I said, I knew that you would be able to use Uber in a pinch. And I also had my own driver, which was actually the better option for me. It's also important to note that the taxis are not as regulated. So you may not know what you're going to pay with the taxis ahead of time. Next, let's talk about some things to do in Ghana. First, let's talk about the big five, the things that everybody must do if you are visiting Accra. Like if you're visiting Accra, you have to find a way to get these 5 activities in. Or did you really visit? First and foremost, Makola Market. Makola Market is a hustling, bustling area that's selling a little bit of everything for people who want to sample the Ghanaian culture. You can get fabrics, you can get garments made, you can get food, you can get produce, you can get toys, you can get trinkets. Everything is going to be found there. You'll find rows and rows of vendors, each selling their own variation of Ghanaian trinkets and knickknacks. Next is W.E.B. Du Bois Center, which is kind of a museum, but it's basically the previous home of W.E.B. Du Bois, where he lived before he passed away. And on this tour, you will get a historical overview of W.E.B. Du Bois and his life in Ghana. This is very educational. To me, most of the information was still centered around Black American life and the life of W.E.B. Du Bois, which I didn't feel that I was that interested in because I know about W.E.B. Du Bois. I didn't want to go all the way to Ghana to learn about W.E.B. Du Bois. I wanted to learn about historical figures that I wasn't familiar with, but it is a popular tourist destination for Black Americans, so it may be something you want to add to your list. Next is Nkrumah Memorial Park. This park is where Ghana's previous president declared independence, so it is a very special place that you want to go. I will say it's not a lot going on at this park, but it is a site that you want to see while you are in Accra, as well as Independence Square. Both of these together are basically just 2 structures. You will see some vendors around. It won't take a whole day. You can go in the morning before you get your day started if you're doing some sightseeing, but there's not much going on here. You will see some vendors around and other tourists, but this isn't the busiest area to be in. However, I would suggest you add it to your list. And then last is Labadi Beach. Now, Ghana, with it being on the coast, does have beaches, and Labadi Beach is one of those beaches. However, I wouldn't suggest going to Ghana for the beach. The beaches in Ghana aren't the best. They're not going to be the most luxurious, relaxing beach experience that you may have or desire, but the beaches are there and they do attract tourists. I just wouldn't recommend, unless you just have extra time in your itinerary and an extra day to do something, I wouldn't recommend you use a day to go to the beach. There's so much other things to see and do. Those are the big 5 activities that people usually want to check off. My only tip is I would suggest doing 1 activity per day. As I said before, it's really hard to plan out things in terms of accurate timing in Ghana. So in your mind, and once you map things out on the map, you may think, oh, we can do all 3 of these things. We could go here in the morning, then go here in the afternoon, and, head here before we go to dinner. But again, the way things are timed out in Ghana and the timing that you may be on is not the timing that the Ghanaian people may be on. So something that you may think would take a couple of hours could quite possibly take the whole entire day. So just be mindful of that. And just so you're not stressed out or overthinking it, I would say 1 activity a day and then be flexible on what time you eat and where you're going to eat. Now, in terms of exploring other regions, of course, you want to try to do a trip to Cape Coast while you're in Ghana. Again, this is going to be a full day trip. This is where you go to see the slave castles. It is a ways away if you're staying in Accra. If you're staying in Accra, it is 2 to 3 hours from the city center. And with traffic, that can double. So you want to give yourself a full day. We woke up at the crack of dawn, and I mean 4 a.m. to get going. And granted, it was a large group of us, but we did not get back until after 9 or 10 o'clock that night. So when I say it's a full day, it's a full day. Just be mindful of that. However, while you're out that way or as you're on your way to the Cape Coast, another great site to see is Kakum National Park. Now, this is more of an actual national park. Nkrumah National Park and Independence Square didn't feel like a national park to me. It's a great site to see, and I was happy I got to experience it. But Kakuma National Park is an actual park. It's where you see like the jungle views and the large swinging narrow canopy that you get to walk across. So that to me was definitely something that you want to experience. If you're already out that way, you might as well add it. Next, back to the activities in Ghana. Of course, shopping. People go to Ghana with a long list of things that they want to buy, from authentic African masks to fruit bowls to clothing. I actually got this dress from the mall there and I absolutely love it, to fabrics, to household items. The shopping is plentiful. Now, when it comes to shopping, you have a couple of options. They do have a couple of malls, but the markets and roadside vendors are going to be a lot more plentiful in the Accra area. However, I personally preferred the items in the Accra mall. This is just a personal preference. I just felt like I was able to shop and focus when I was in the mall a little bit better than when I was shopping in the market. When I was on the side of the road, I saw some things that I liked, but then I would get distracted. It was just so much going on. But again, that's just personal preference. Outside of shopping, you may want to do food shopping, like I said, because the timing of when you're going to have dinner or having a dinner reservation and thinking, okay, well, if we get there at 7, we should be eating by 8. It's really hard to time that out. So you may want to just have food at your hotel room or at your Airbnb. And some places you can go for that are going to be either Melcombe Market or Maxmart. These are going to be kind of your Walmart-esque type convenience stores. Melcombe Market is going to be a combination of groceries, food items, as well as personal items. So it is kind of a one-stop shop. And I think they have a couple of different locations, but that's something that you may want to map out from your Airbnb or wherever you're staying. How far are you going to be from Melcombe Market? Because again, one thing that I did find is sometimes finding things that are more easily convenient or readily available to us here in the United States, you have to do a little bit of searching for when you're in Accra. So you may not just be able to walk into any store and find this item. And then lastly is the nightlife. Now, I didn't personally get a true exposure to the nightlife. We went out to dinner a couple of nights, and of course it was lively and festive and full of culture, but we didn't really go out to any bars. The group I was with, it was a multi-generational group. So because we were all traveling together as a group and exploring together as a group, I didn't get any experience in the nightlife. However, it is important to be aware that Ghana does have a bustling nightlife. The music, the entertainment, all of that is available in the Accra city center. Next, let's talk about the language in Ghana. Now, in Ghana, the primary language is English. Everybody that you talk to does speak very fluent English. However, most people also speak a second language. There are a variety of different African and Afrikaan dialects, and one of the main ones that are used in Ghana is called Twi. If you want to be respectful and acknowledge Ghana culture, which you should acknowledge the culture of anywhere you travel, it is suggested that you learn a couple of Twi phrases, even if you're not strong, which I certainly am not, but if they see that you are putting forth an effort, it helps a great deal. So some of the phrases that I learned and that I tried to use when I was there was Akwaba, which is a greeting. Basically, I think it translates to either welcome or hello, but it is said quite a bit. So I say it, Akwaba. Next, Entisin, which is how are you? Akwaba, Etisin. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. That's how I say it. And people usually understood what I was saying. Etisin. Eya, I'm fine, is a response to Etisin. So if you say Etisin, then the person you're speaking to will respond with Eya. I'm fine. And then lastly, Madasi, which is thank you. Please and thank you are two big phrases that the Ghanaian people use, especially when speaking to strangers. So anytime someone is doing something for you, please make sure you thank them by saying Madasi. Next, the thing that I get asked most about is safety. Of course, as citizens of the United States, we have been given the impression that any underdeveloped country, for whatever reason, is somehow unsafe. Luckily, that is not the case when you are traveling to Ghana. Ghana is one of the safest countries you can travel to. Their crime rate is very low. However, just like with any bustling city or area, you do need to be mindful that there is crime. There is still crime. You don't want to make yourself a target. Most of the crime falls under the petty theft umbrella. So pickpocketing, phone snatching is really big out there. So just be mindful as a tourist. I know we want to always take pictures, get the video, get the footage, get the content. You do not want to have your phone out all the time in very crowded areas because someone will ride by, snatch it, and they'll be gone and you won't be able to catch them. Okay. That didn't happen to me, but I am a content person. So I was trying to get as much footage as I possibly could. And I was constantly being reminded to be careful. So I'm passing that tip on to you. Just be mindful. It's okay to record. It's okay to video, but just be aware of your surroundings. So with that being said, here are a couple of just general tips of safety as you're traveling to Ghana. First and foremost, be aware of your surroundings. Keep your head on a swivel, look around, see how close you are to people, see how close people are to you. In some of the areas where there are a lot of vendors, they do like to haggle and they will follow you down the street, follow you to your car, follow you to your next destination, trying to sell you something. And that could make you feel a little unsafe because somebody's following you, but they don't mean you any harm. However, you just want to be mindful of your surroundings at all times. If you're in an Uber or taxi or anywhere with the ride, go ahead and keep the windows down just in case. As a tourist, we like to travel with very large bags. We like to have our camera on us, everything that we need for the day. So you just want to be mindful of your bags. Next, let's talk about the laws, customs, and etiquette. When you're traveling somewhere new, you want to be respectful of what is important to them. Even if this is not something that's important to you, you want to be respectful of what is important to them. Just like we are very ethnocentric here in the United States, when tourists come from other countries and we assume that they should know how we do things or how things operate here. If you are a tourist from the United States going somewhere else, you want to have that same respect for other countries. First, you want to be mindful in terms of wardrobe that camouflage or military-like garments are not only not popular there, but they're actually illegal. So if you like to wear camo, you want to avoid it for your trip to Ghana. It's also important to be mindful that marijuana is also not legal in Ghana. So if you use medical marijuana or if you like to partake in marijuana when you're on vacation for recreational purposes, you won't be able to do it in Ghana because it is illegal. Next is something that is very important and that I don't see a lot of people talking about or explaining, but it is the custom of handing people something or receiving something with your right hand. Basically, anything you do, whether it's eating, drinking, gesturing to somebody, you want to use your right hand. You want to avoid using your left hand as much as possible. In Ghana, it is seen as unclean and somewhat disrespectful to hand somebody something or to accept something with your left hand. In this culture, the left hand is used to do anything that is not clean. So if you're cleaning something up, if you are doing something in the bathroom or doing something that requires touching something unsanitary, you would do that with your left hand. But anything that is clean, eating, drinking, shaking somebody's hand, you want to use your right hand. As I said earlier, greetings are also very important and considered very respectful, whether you walk into a room full of strangers, whether you walk into a room of people that you saw earlier that day. It is important to greet everyone individually when you walk into a room. Akwaba is a greeting that you will hear people saying a lot, but you can say hello, good morning, whatever suits you. But I like to say Akwaba followed by good morning or whatever time of day it is. And lastly, when it comes to the culture and etiquette, it's important to note, especially if you are a female and even more especially if you are a single solo female traveler, that the culture in Ghana is very male-centered. And what I mean by that is people will acknowledge men in the group before they acknowledge women. People will interact and do business and answer questions to men before they do to women. So this was my experience as a single solo traveler. And I can see some pros and cons with this. Again, as a single solo traveler, I can speak for myself. I like to have information given directly to me so that I can verify that it's accurate. And I found on a couple of occasions when I was trying to get business related things taken care of, for example, my luggage was lost at the airport and I needed to know where it was because it was my luggage. And I got a lot of hesitation when asking questions. However, when my friend's husband came up to the airport with me, he got a response right away. My bag just appeared out of nowhere and we were able to, get my bag and leave with no issues. However, I had been calling for like a day and a half trying to locate my bag and talk talking to different men, of course, and nobody was even bothered to give me any information whatsoever. They never even answered my question. Another instance was I got some moisture in my phone and I wasn't able to use my cord to charge it. I needed to use a wireless charger. So I had to go to the mall to get a wireless charger. And the taxi driver, my personal driver actually that was with me, he came into the mall with me. So that's the positive part of it, is that in my experience, the men that do interact with you, they do go out of their way to make sure you're good. Like they don't just kind of send you off on your own to do things. Because once we got to the mall, I was like, okay, I'm just going to run in and get a charger and I'll be right out. He was like, no, I'm coming with you, So he came with me. However, the salesman in the store was talking directly to him. I'm the one buying the charger, because it's my phone, it's my money, but he wasn't answering any of my questions. He would talk to my driver. My driver would then talk to me. I would answer back to my driver. My driver would then talk to the salesperson. So that dynamic was a little bit different for me, but again, that is their culture. So that is something to be aware of. But I would say the flip side of that is everywhere I went, anytime I was with a Ghanaian man or a Ghanaian man was in my presence, I did feel like he was going above and beyond to make sure I was taken care of. Like I never had to carry a bag, even if it was like the smallest bag, a bag of takeout, leftovers or my actual purse. The men in that culture were just like, okay, I got it. I'll take care of it. I'll take it in. And it's just like, oh, I can carry it myself. That was a little bit of a culture shock for me. Like I said, again, as a single solo traveler, but it's something that you want to be mindful of. So if you are traveling with a man, whether it be your significant other or with a group of friends, and there happen to be guys in the group, just be mindful of that people may address the men in the group first or directly and not directly address the women. And then last but not least, like I always suggest, it is important to do your own research, especially when traveling to a newer destination or destinations that may not be as popular. I have read quite a few vlogs giving tips and suggestions about travel to Ghana, and they each say something a little bit different. So make sure you do your own research. I think with places like Ghana that are just now gaining popularity in tourism, that it's important to also get kind of direct word of mouth recommendations. So if you can talk to somebody that you know personally, whose opinion and kind of taste and recommendations you can trust, I think that would be the way to go. Because like I said, I think if you are a female and you're getting tips and suggestions from a guy, their experience may be totally different than what your experience may be. Or if you're talking to somebody that went in December for Afrochella or Afrofuture, what they experienced during that time may be different if you decide to go in the summer, where it may not be as many tourists in the area. And then also under doing your own research, you want to be mindful that there are a lot of different options for places to stay in Ghana, and each offers something a little bit different. I can't give you a recommendation because it would really just all depends on what your travel experience is. If you're traveling with family, if you're traveling solo, if you're traveling with a group, if you're just traveling with one other person. But they do have a wide variety of options. They have wonderful hotels. They have plenty of Airbnbs. Again, like I said, since the year of the return, a lot of people have been going back to buy property because they did give away a large amount of land to Black American citizens and Black citizens of the diaspora in general. So a lot of people did take them up on that offer, got the free land, and started building houses and are now using them as Airbnbs. So plenty of Airbnbs, and the Airbnb hosts tend to be very communicative. So that definitely, if I had to give a recommendation, I would recommend that. But there are also plenty of hostels and hotels. So a variety of options that are suitable for any traveler. All right, so those are my 10 tips for your travel to Ghana. Ghana is an amazing destination. Like I said, the tourism is just starting to gain momentum. So this travel experience will probably be quite different than any experience you've had before. Me traveling to Ghana was definitely more of a cultural experience. If you're looking for a luxurious, relaxing, kickback vacation, this may not be the destination for you. But if you are looking for a enriched cultural experience to an eye-opening awareness of the diaspora, this is where you want to start. If you are a true traveler that likes to feel changed and empowered with every destination you travel to, Ghana needs to be on your list. But that's all for now. Let me know in the comments if you plan to travel to Ghana, if you have traveled to Ghana, and if you have any other tips that should be added to this list, because I might do an updated video after my next trip. And also just a reminder, this is a new growing channel. So if you're loving these travel tips, make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.